All right, this thing's on. So,
Sweet.
hello and welcome to episode 6. We're trying this new thing where we're gonna actually record this on video. We eventually may invite people to join with us and join in the conversation. But given this is the first time we're going to do it, we're recording the podcast, so you'll get the edited version. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can continue to do that exactly the way you do now. But if you're interested, maybe in the future, joining in the conversation while we record the podcast, or if you're going to watch back on the videos of the podcast, which it'll be completely unedited. So it's kind of a watch at your own risk kind of thing. But anyway, I'm Adam, and got Andy with me.
Hey guys, I'm Andy.
And today we're going to talk about essential hobby tools. But first, we want to thank those that are our patrons and those that support the show. So we've got our Patreons, William, Brian, and Kyle. Thank you guys so much. It means a lot to us to help and support what we're doing. So, but first, we're going to get started and kind of what we've been working on, and then do our updates, especially with the Budget Army project. So.
Yeah, so a little bit about what I've been working on is so I've kind of pulled off some of the items that I picked up for my Budget Army. I picked up a troop squad for my Harlequins for $9, and the local shop here in town actually had a solitaire for $13. So far I'm $22 in, so I've got $178 left.
Nice.
So I've still got a bit to go. But I'm started. I've kind of done the thing. I think I'm trying to be overly ambitious with trying to save money, and I keep getting a shot in the foot by somebody else on eBay and a couple things I had on the Facebook Marketplace.
Losing bids and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I try to make a good deal even better, and then somebody else just swoops in. So I'll eventually, bite the bullet a little further and pick up a lot more stuff. But I figured it's a good place to start, and it gives me a good idea of what I want to do paint scheme wise. So good place for me to begin anyway.
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty much wrapped up. Of course, like as I talked before, we've got I got the Primaris Dark Imperium. No, not Dark Imperium. Whatever.
I think it is Dark Imperium.
No, it is Dark Imperium. Gosh. Okay.
Yeah, see, we'll edit that out. Forget you heard it.
yeah. No. Yeah. So I got the Primaris set. Whatever it's called. It is Dark Imperium. But so that gives me the captain. I've got 2 lieutenants, the ancient, 5 intercessors, 3 inceptors, and then the 5 hellblasters, which I'm really excited about those guys. And then I picked up 2 dreadnoughts. Good deal on those guys. And then a squad of tactical marines. And then 2 razorbacks. I mean, shoot, you got to have razorbacks. And then maybe kind of a spoiler on my army a little bit is I got some bits. And so basically my razorbacks are going to have the freaking bulldozer blades on them. So I ordered some of the Chimera dozer blades for those. And then, the dreadnoughts, I got them really cheap. They're gonna require some work. But hey, I got 2 dreadnoughts. So, then the tactical marine, I got a pretty good deal on it too. So I'll be getting those in, hopefully, the bits and stuff like that. Most of the other stuff I either had or found a deal on them pretty recently. So I'm gonna get those in together. But if you are watching this video, I'm gonna kind of give a spoiler on the prize model. If you're in the community page, you would have seen this already. It's kind of like I did a what do you call it, silhouette of the model that I'm going to use. More information about it is it's actually a Warhammer miniature, but it's what would you call this? It's been
converted.
Yes. It's a great conversion. So if you're watching this on the video, you'll be able to see it. I'm showing it up here on the camera, and you could see how awesome this thing is. It's epic, and it really is reflective of what we're trying to do here. So, like, you're getting the biggest bang for your buck, you know, and you're scoping out really good deals. And right now it looks like crap. I'll be honest with you. It's purple. I mean, but this is why I bought it. If you're looking at the video, because that really is what we're going for. Like, you know, how epic can you get, and how much money can you save? And this is going to be painted and put on like a big 4x4 piece of wood. It's gonna be a nice little trophy you can set on your desk. And then, you know, on the front of it, I'll have, you know, some kind of nice, I don't know, whether it's plaque or whatever. But yeah, it's gonna look pretty sweet. If you're looking at the video, you can see and check this bad boy out. But I'm not gonna spoil it for you listening. You got to check it out on the video to see what it is. And then I'm also gonna strip the paint on this, so that might be part of it when I do my dreadnoughts for my list. So anyway, I'm pretty much rounded out. I have 96 cents remaining for my budget. So
not good enough.
Nah, yeah, I can't really find. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I can find a decal off of somebody locally or something. But yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get anything for 96 cents. That's Games Workshop. So anyway, so let's go ahead and move on to any new gear, any new tools or anything for you.
For me, I broke down and went out and bought the Blood Angel data card because if you listen to the previous podcast, you know that I'm a Blood Angel player. The data cards are pretty handy. It's nice to have everything all at once: the strategems, the psychic powers, the objectives. So it's nice to have that all at once. And really, for Games Workshop, I think the price is pretty good for all of that. I mean, I picked them up. I just went and bought them from my local shop, and it's for $15. So I felt pretty comfortable about that. What I didn't feel comfortable about, but I pulled the trigger anyway, is I picked up the texture paints from Games Workshop. So I got the Astrogranite Debris. It's kind of a dark gray texture. Plan to use that for my Harlequins. And then the Armageddon Dune, which is kind of a sandy yellow. And plan to use that for my Blood Angels. So they're handy to have. But we'll see.
I'm excited. You know, as Andy and I were preparing for this, we're like, "Hey, do you got any new stuff?" And I'm like, "No, new stuff." Anyway, it's kind of like, anyway. So yeah, that's backwards in the camera, but yeah, I get the Grey Knights data cards, and then, believe it or not, just now got this book, the chapter approved. Anyway, and haven't read it, so yeah, I heard it's a good book. And you should have it. So, especially since I play a lot of 40K when I can. So anyway, but I've really been working on actually painting stuff, which was kind of cool to kind of. It's been a while since I've actually painted something, because you know we've been transitioning many Battlefield games, but I'm doing like a personal project for a friend. That he did some work for me, so I'm gonna paint some miniatures for him. So on the video, I did some Sorks. These are Thousand Suns. There was some, you know, work in progress stuff that I put up there. But the cool thing is I magnetized all of their arms. So not only for storage stuff, but you know they're nice to, like you could actually trade them around. Actually, in the funny thing is in that the Thousand Suns Sork set. There's one Sork that's like, I don't know, he's just didn't look that great like when I was building him and stuff like that, and I was like, hey, this guy's kind of plain. And then I realized that if you're looking at the video, you can see this cape on the back. See if I can get the camera to focus a little bit better or not. But the cape on the back, yeah, that's why we're fools, I guess. But anyway, the cape on the back here, it was actually separate along with these. I'm sure you know what are these called? Familiars, spell familiars.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they went with that one. It's either those little familiars that the Thousand Sons kind of have, or it maybe it's just some sort of spell. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so there's like these bird skull things, like
Kind of look
that's
like
the Thousand Sons.
like a vulture head or something flying out of it.
Right, and they're on like this ribbon, and they come out, and like I completely forgot I had those, and so I put this this Sork on foot. This is a custom bit. I have no clue where that came from. I couldn't tell you if you asked me. I just had it, and so I put it on there. I thought it was cool. The head that it came with was kind of, not as good, but and then of course you got the jumping Sork. He's pretty cool. He's like got a bird head. I did the bird head on him. And then, of course, you got to have the bad boy himself. Not Magnus, but the other bad boy, I guess. Airman. So I did Airman. These new miniatures, like, they're so cool. Like if you see on the camera, like he has this spell stuff coming off of his hand. And so, it was pretty fun to paint that. Pretty cool little miniature. And then something else, like, I wish I could remember. I'll put it in the show notes, minibattlegames.com/episode 6. But I found these little counter things. So I built this base out of this. And if you can see right here, it has the number of wounds. So you could spin this. It's got a wound counter built into his flying base here. So anyway, those were the things that I got done. I was pretty excited to have those guys wrapped up. They came out pretty nice. But yeah, I was excited to get those done. And still on the Thousand Sons army, I got both of these guys going. If you're looking at the video, you'll see they're two rhinos. But with Thousand Sons theme, I put like little tombstones on the back, on the, I don't know what you call those hatches, the open hatches, the big double doors that open up on the top. So one has like a scorpion, and then the other one has a scarab on it, to kind of go with the Thousand Sons theme. So, and then Andy doesn't even know this. But on this one, I'm actually building I'm putting an LED light kit in here. So he's like, hey, yeah, you could do it. You can see in the bottom, I get, cut the bottom open and got holes for all the wires and stuff like that. But I can't find my solder. So got my solder gun, got a really nice one because, that's what I do. And I can't find my solder. So it's in pieces. I got all the lights and stuff, but hey.
It's half the battle, I guess.
Yeah, I'm like sitting there. I'm like, man, I really need to put all these wires. I don't have any solder. So anyway, which is kind of what goes along with the topic on what we're going to talk about. But before we get into today's topic, I wanted to just remind everybody, that right now you can win some free stuff. We want to give back to all of those that support us, that follow us. So the last Friday of every month, we're doing a giveaway of a miniature set, games, tools, whatever. And for January this month, you can still enter that. You have to go to minibattlegames.com /drawing. And basically you have to do the, you have to sign up from the website. But there's ways you can earn additional entries into here. You can partner with us on Patreon. You can earn up to 125 bonus entries. And then, also the Patreons every month, they're automatically entered into the drawing. So every month you have to re-register for the drawing. But the Patrons are automatically entered into the drawing. So they don't even have to re-enter or anything like that. And every month they get their bonus entries based on their level. And then, subscription on media. So like if you follow us on YouTube, if you follow us on Facebook, if you follow us on Twitter or Instagram, I guess Facebook, you like them, whatever. If you're part of that, you get a bonus entry. But if you're part of the gaming community, minibattlefieldgames.com/community will redirect you. It's a Facebook community. You get 2 additional drawings. And then also one other way is if you leave a review. So like on iTunes, if you were to leave a review for us, that also gets you a bonus entry. And just to be honest, you could do those things before you sign up and you get those bonus entries. So I would advise you to do those things, get your bonus entries, then go sign up, check all the boxes that you did it all. We'll confirm it, and boom, you've got more bonus entries to get free stuff. So anyway, you're pretty crazy if you're not doing it. But it's our way to give back. We hope that whoever wins it is deserving and stuff. So, but if you want more information, minibattlefieldgames.com, click the monthly giveaways link at the top of our page. So.
All right, so on to today's topic, where we're going to talk about the essential hobby tools for tabletop games. Kind of what we wanted to do was just talk about some of the things if you're currently getting into the hobby, or maybe you've decided to start from anew or come back into it. Just kind of, or if you're an experienced hobby, just things that you might expand on of what you currently have. We would just want to kind of to go over and talk about some of these tools. And Adam and I will talk a little bit about the things we use, things we prefer, things we've tried, maybe stuff we haven't. Just kind of give our feedback on some things, and we'll also have links to some of these things in case you kind of want to know where you can go get them, or if you hear us say something in a hillbilly accent that doesn't make sense, that way you can come kind of find it on your own. Dude. Yeah. So we just kind of wanted to run through the list of some things that you'll need. If you want to get started in the hobby and kind of go from there. So right off the bat, as with any hobby, one of the things you're going to need, I think probably one of the most critical things, and a lot of times I don't know that you really assign a cost or value to it, but you're going to need space to work. And this could, of course, be a desk, a table, or just kind of any other area that you have, whether you have a massive house or a small house. As long as you have room to work, you're going to need it.
Yeah. So especially if you got an addiction like me to plastic, you need storage area in your workspace too.
Yeah, because you'll discover pretty quickly the amount of stuff that you'll accumulate, especially if you're into the hobby for a few years. Over time, you just build up things. And I'm a bit of a pack rat, so I don't throw a lot of things away. So, I mean, my bit pile is pretty massive itself.
Oh, yeah.
But luckily for me, I actually have a kind of a spare guest bedroom. And my wife was kind enough to let me build my own desk. And by build my desk, let's just say my woodworking skills are not quite up to where I'd like them to be. So in my head, things go differently. But basically all I did was I have 2 bookshelves, kind of short 3-tiered bookshelves, and then I have a piece of plywood that stretches over top of them. Of course, it's sanded and looks a little fancier than what it sounds. But I built a desk for less than $50, and it's pretty big. And kind of the other aspect that was great about it is, so when Adam and I are together, I can actually move the desk away from the wall, and it's big enough that we can both sit on either side of the desk and work. So.
Yeah, it's pretty nice little space. So me, I don't have any space in the house. But for, I guess, my graduation, when I graduated college way back when, I was gifted a shed. So this is I'm in it right now. If you're looking at the video, if you're watching this video back, which we'll have the links for the video if you're interested. But anyway, I'm in here. Of course, the light on is back there. If you can see kind of past me, I have some paints up here. So, and if y'all remember, I did studio painting for a while. So this is kind of where I hung out. And then, of course, this is all climate controlled. I have like my photo booth is set up here right now. But this is actually my gaming table. This bottom here folds all the way up. and then it's a full 4x8 gaming table, and it's like counter height. Then underneath it, I don't want to show anybody because it's pretty messy under there, but it's all like boxes of stuff and games and stuff like that that hasn't been built. Let me see if I can spin the camera around here a little bit. And you can see my shelf there. That's like stuff I have in progress or stuff that's like pulled out of the box, and I just kept the box over there for temporary stuff. And then I guess the better part is I have, you know, my table here. Of course, it's messy right now because I brought a bunch of stuff over here to show you guys. But then I have, you know, a desk here. I have a center desk in the middle. And then over at the side, I have like a spray booth that has like the vent hood and all that kind of stuff. And then I have like a little display case and stuff like that. And then, you know, some of the stuff I've got over here, like bits, you know, how Andy said he keeps all of his bits. I do too. And they're organized. Yay.
That's more than I can say. Mine are all just in one giant box. So
I will say that that's not all of them. It's not nearly all of them. Like I have another bin set that's even on the back wall opposite of the camera here. But it has like organized based on like the faction. So like Tau bits. I have a ton of Tau bits. I used to play Tau. And then, you know, like random Space Marine bits and stuff like that. I mean, doing commission work, you know, you flip a lot of plastic and there's a lot of stuff you don't use. And so you bin them and then you make train pieces or, you know, basing. You can use them as chunks and stuff like that. It's always good to keep those bits. But yeah, that's my space. It's nothing like super crazy. It's nice that it's, I mean, I'm in Texas, so I got AC, got heat in here. You know, we had our cold front come through. We had our 3-day winter where it got below 30. And so,
yeah.
So yeah, it kept it nice and warm in here. So yeah, this is my place where I can hang out and do some paint and actually play a little bit when we need to. So
yeah, and I guess the other thing that neither one of us mentioned, but one thing that's always important too is a comfy chair. You're like me, you'll sit and work for hours, and before you know it, you know, you've probably been working 3 or 4 hours, and you'll find out really quickly if you have a comfy chair or not. So never underestimate a good chair.
Yes, yeah. So we talked about workspace. So the next thing we want to talk about is a knife. And kind of grouped in, I'm going to put these two together, knife and cutters, but uniquely specific. You know, knife, I use the X-Acto knives. I just have really good luck with them. I think I used maybe the Gold series. Those blades seem to stay, they're the only difference is the blade. The handle's exactly the same, whatever, but the blades seem to stay sharper, and I can actually cut like metal models and it doesn't dull the blade as much. And the tip seems to remain there, like the end of the tip. Because on the other blades, I was breaking them off all the time. So, but yeah, I use the X-Acto blade. And I probably have it under the pile of mess here. But Andy, what do you use as your knife?
Yeah, so basically it's the same for me. I have the name brand X-Acto. And then I think I have like the Hobby Lobby version of that. The real thing important here is that, you know, it just needs to be a sharp blade. And the kind of the word of caution here is, you notice from the beginning, Adam was far more productive than I was. I actually had the pleasure last week when I was prepping some of my Harlequin monocles for Prime to put the end of that blade in my thumb. And so,
yeah, I got to see it too. It's pretty bloody. That was a pretty good one.
Yeah, so luckily no stitches, but you don't realize how much you use your thumb until you stick a knife in it. So it was a painful week, but luckily it's doing okay, and I've just learned my lesson. So number one rule, and I know if you're like me, you've heard it all your life, is always cut away from you. And I should know that. I'm smarter than that, I like to think. But apparently I just decided not to listen to all that advice, and my thumb paid for it. But yeah, just any kind of hobby knife, as long as it's sharp. The good thing about these is blades are pretty affordable and they're easy to change. So yeah, there's all kinds of varieties.
Yeah, so like if you're watching the video, X-Acto knife, everybody's seen one. It's got a little angled blade on it. And kind of to go along, like, obviously you cut stuff with this. If you're Andy, you cut your thumb. But if you could cut sprues off, but I actually use the back of this, the dull part, probably more than I use the cutting part of it. To be honest, I use the back part of it as a mold line remover, and so we can kind of group that in here too. But there are, I think Citadel makes a specific mold line remover. Andy, actually, I think he has one. But then also I have, for other cutting. So like this works really great cutting molds or sprues off, cleaning up models and stuff like that. The X-Acto blade, if you're listening. But I also have this blade that's like an extraction blade, and then it's got a safety lock on it. And I use this blade for cutting like large pieces, or I'll use it for like cutting tape, like putting it down on a cutting mat, and I'll actually cut tape to do masking and different stuff like that. So these are really, these two are actually in my desk container. So I actually put them in my desk, and they always stay near me when I'm doing any kind of hobbying. Even if I'm painting, I still have these on, because I may start painting and be like, oh crap, I missed the mold line, and boop boop, got it off, or I missed a sprue somehow. Especially when you're doing commission stuff where you're doing like a friggin' army worth of stuff. So
yeah, and that's one thing you'll discover too, is that the kind of, as your skill as a painter advances and a modeler, you'll learn how much of a difference it makes if you remove those mold lines. So these tools to do that are pretty important. Like Adam said, I have, if you're watching the video, you can see I have the Citadel mold line remover from Games Workshop. Basically what it is pull it out here because I managed to keep the box. It is a flat tool here. It's actually flat, but it's really sharp on a 90-degree angle. And what this is really good at, it basically prevents from gouging the model, but it's really good at moving mold lines. Really, the only thing negative I have about this tool is the cost. So it's great if you have one. It's not necessary to get one. It's probably safer for your thumb, but you can do everything that this mold line remover can do with an X-Acto knife. Of course, there's a little bit more care that you kind of have to take, because you can actually gouge plastic with X-Acto knives if you're not careful.
Yeah, and I give Andy a hard time about knives. Seriously though, be careful with it. They're very sharp. I actually, give him a hard time, but if you look at my thumb, I have scars from the cuts and stuff that I've gotten. And then also, like, especially starting out, like I would try to remove mold lines and stuff like that with it, and I wasn't skilled enough, and ended up like basically taking chunks out of models and stuff. So it's good to have a sharp one to get the job done clean and quick. But in all seriousness, be careful and learn to use it correctly. So.
Yeah, and that kind of goes on to the other part too, is when we say mold line removers, it doesn't necessarily have to be a blade. Sandpaper works perfectly fine, although it may take a little longer in some instances. But even in conjunction with a mold line remover, you probably want some sandpaper anyway. And what I have is they make these, these little hobby sticks where they're two different grits on one side, and they're really great because the sticks are actually, flexible. They can bend around uneven surfaces. So they're great from that standpoint. But if you don't have one of these and you don't want to spend the money, just regular pieces of sandpaper work great too.
Yeah, and along with that, I have metal files and stuff like that that are really fine. They're modelers files, which those are good for metal models, like Reaver miniatures and stuff like that are pewter or metal. And then I think I use 1000 grit sandpaper, just a sheet of it, and I kind of cut it into strips, like I'll cut it in like a 3-inch, and then I'll roll it up and then kind of get that bar like Andy, because I'm cheap. And so, I just use basically a long stick of rolled up sandpaper. So, so along with that, we kind of mentioned the cutters. obviously it's important to have sharp cutters. But the other important thing with your cutters is to have an angled cutter. And really the purpose behind that is you can put the angle of the cutter against the model, and then when you cut, the plastic is moved away, so the sprue is pushed away, so you get cleaner cuts. If you're looking at the camera, you can kind of see mine here, showing it on my face, and you can see that this one is pretty beat up. That's because I cut wires and all kinds of different stuff with it. So I actually have two of these. One's extremely sharp, and I only use it for plastic, and then I have this one that's used for cutting whatever I want to. So like I actually pin all my models, so I'll actually cut the paper clip with this one, and then if I'm cutting plastic, I use the other one. So and then man, like Games Workshop makes some of these. Army Painter makes some.
Yeah, you can find specific hobby ones. You tend to pay a little bit more for those. The ones I use, who knows, they sharp things around here tend to get hidden when you have little ones, but I don't see mine on my desk. But I actually have a pair that I picked up from Harbor Freight. If you're in the U.S., you're familiar with them. They sell low-cost tools. They didn't stay sharp long, but when the tool itself costs around $2, you really can't beat it. They're meant to be replaceable. So that's primarily what I use. But if you want to spend a little bit more money for something that's going to last a little longer, by all means do that. It's just like Adam said, I tend to cut metal with mine too. So I don't want to spend $20 on a really nice blade to be hacking pieces of metal with it.
Yeah. I think I got mine either Hobby Lobby or something like that. But if you don't have that, you can actually check in the jewelry, like the crafts where they make jewelry, and jewelry they make the angled cutters for jewelry. So
then kind of moving on, the other thing that you would want to add to your arsenal is glues. And when we say glue, there's multiple times here. There's super glue, different types of super glue, and then model glue, and then PVA glue. Super glue, you could go from anything to gel to normal to brush applied. Really, the sky's the limit as far as what types of super glue you can find. Really, here it's just what you're most comfortable using. For me, I like these. If you're kind of watching the screen, I like these Loctite super glues. They're gel, easy to dispense in this kind of container. You pay a little bit more for these, but they're nice to have. You don't have to worry about it getting everywhere, getting on the model or stuck to your fingers and gluing things to yourself inadvertently. So it's all kinds of options.
Yeah, with super glue, just real quick, before we go on to model glue and different stuff. Super glue, I actually have. Yeah, I have a problem. So I've got. What brand is this? It just says Extreme Power. Anyway, I got thick, medium, and then I usually use those the glue like Andy uses, and then I started picking up these Gorilla Super Glue gel, and then I got some Gorilla brush on as well. The brush on's really good for vehicles like these rhinos that I was putting together. It's really cool to just take that brush and go, all the way down that side where you got a line that has to glue and seal shut, or plate and armor or something like that. So all kinds of super glue. I almost primarily use super glue, but we'll talk about the other ones. So
yeah, then the other type of glue we mentioned is model glue. The main difference here is, I kind of have an example here on my desk, which is unopened, which kind of tells you what I clearly think about model glues. The main difference between here is these type of glues tend to melt plastic, so they adhere plastic together by kind of fusing them. They're great from the standpoint of so one of the things I do for the nieces and nephews is I've kind of made models, and for my daughter herself, made some of hers. So things like this are probably great for that application because they fuse the arms and legs and joints and things together. Downside is it takes a little longer to dry. So, sometimes you may have to tape it. If it's something like an arm that's heavy, you'll have to tape it to hold it there until the glue sets. And you're probably an hour or two away from it setting, whereas most times with super glue, you've probably got some adhesion within 15, 20 seconds. So it kind of has its role. These don't work well for metal, because like I said before, they fuse things together. But some applications, if you really need a strong bond, I mean they're great. But I mean, from what you can see, I don't even. This is probably 2 years old, and I've never taken it out of the package. So that's kind of what I think about them. But
yeah, I'm kind of on the same thing. Like, so the good thing is like, yeah, they bond really well. So it says on here the hold time is 20 seconds before, and then it takes 4 hours to set. You can see this is one I've had for probably 2 years, barely used. The applications really are that, something that you want to stay together. And the times that I pull this stick out is really like if I break something, like for example, like a long piece of plastic tube or something like that that's on a miniature. I'll actually pull this out so I get a fusion of that plastic together. The reason why I don't use it like for general assembly and stuff like that is because I want my Space Marine model or whatever, when it falls, instead of the arm breaking in half, I want the arm to just break off. And that's what super glue does. It'll break at the super glue bond, and I just re-glue it. Whereas if I glue with this, that arm is going to break. And so now I'm fixing a piece of plastic rather than, just gluing it back together. So that's kind of the uses I have for it.
Yeah, and then on to the last glue. There's a lot of trade names here, but most of it, just PVA glue. And this really is the kind of if you think about school glue, things that you'd send a kid off to school with to glue paper. That's what we mean by PVA glue. Where this would be used is mainly for basing material. You obviously wouldn't want to glue any of your models together with this. If you did that, you'd probably only do it once, and you'd be redoing it the first time you touched it.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, that may be another project. But the other good thing too is so scenery and things like that sort of application. If you're going to glue a whole bunch of sand to a base, PVA glue is where it's at. And then the other thing you can do to it is say you glue some things down for scenery. You're not quite sure how well it's going to hold. I've got a bottle of it here. You take PVA glue and water, mix it 50-50, and then just kind of take a dropper and just drop it over, and it'll kind of re-wet everything and then kind of really anchor it down. So then you don't have to worry about your scenery and base material kind of falling off as you're playing with them. But mainly for basing is where you're going to use any of those.
Yeah, and we talked about different brands and stuff like that. The cool thing is about PVA glue is it's water based. Like Andy said, you can mix it with water it down, but it dries very clear. So that's why it's good for basing, like putting down flock and different stuff like that. And then I tried, you could go, buy Elmer's or whatever, basic glue from the store, but I tried the Army Painter glue, and it was actually pretty interesting. I'm pretty sure it's Elmer's inside, not gonna lie, but anyway, yeah, everybody brands it whatever, so find the cheapest PVA that works for you. So
yeah, and then kind of on the next thing, Adam kind of mentioned it before, but the one thing that if you start painting and assembly, one thing that's kind of nice to have is kind of a hobby drill. What we mean by that is just most of these are kind of small handheld drills that can drill holes in things probably about the size of a paper clip. So kind of understand what that means. The one I use is just a cheap Testors one. You don't really need anything fancy. You just kind of twirl it yourself. But what this is really good for is, say you want to assemble a bunch of things, you don't really want to glue them onto the base. So one of the things that we do a lot of is kind of drill out a hole, straighten a paper clip, and then glue your model to the paper clip. And then this way you can actually paint a model without holding on to it. And the other thing that's really good is If you've got any metal models, if you're familiar with those, sometimes they can be a pain to glue. What's great is if you can pin them. So, drill a hole, then use paper clips, and then kind of put it on either joint. And then that way it gets you a really strong joint because you've got kind of something a little bit more for that glue to hold on to. And then kind of the final thing, cork bases are really great and really cheap and easy to make. But kind of the downside is it's hard to glue a model to a cork base.
Yeah.
So because the first time you'll do that, it'll kind of pop off. I've got one of them sitting on a bench now that you can kind of see it. Just if you're watching the model, cleanly just breaks right off the cork. But with the pins are really great, and that's why this one's on the repair bench, is because you can put a pin in it and then just push the pin all the way through the cork, or can actually drill all the way through the plastic to have it come through the underside of the base and bend it down, and that way you get a really good bond. Your model's not very likely to come off the base.
Yeah, and I actually found this. I'll have to post a link to this hand drill. I used the Testors one for a long time. Ended up giving it to Edgar. He was using it to do different pinnings and stuff like that. But I found this one. You can see on the camera I'm actually spinning it. It's got a bearing in it, and it just spins real freely. You can kind of hear it in the microphone there. But the better thing I like about it, that's cool and all, because when you apply pressure, you can spin it freely with the bearing. But the chuck is an actual, if you've ever used like a hand drill or a power drill or something like that, this chuck actually will adjust using your hand to screw like a regular drill bit chuck. So the Testors one has like little inserts, and you poke them in and then tighten it down.
More like a slip and compression type fitting.
Now, granted, the compression and the fit, you lock down on those drill bits and they're not going anywhere. And you get that with this one. Probably not as good, maybe. But anyways, I'll post a link to this one. It's the one I recommend. It's my new best friend for hand drills. So
I think kind of onto the obvious one here is with brushes. Kind of the sky is the limit when it comes to brushes. Really, what's important is finding something that you're comfortable with painting with, and what I mean by that is the right size to paint the detail that you're after. The other thing to stress with brushes is you can have good brushes and you can have really cheap brushes. Good brushes don't make you a better painter. And bad brushes don't make you any worse of a painter. It's just a tool. But the most important thing with brushes is take care of them. It's one of those things we can't stress enough, is that it's real easy to, not clean your brush properly. And, what you used to have was a really great brush, and then you get paint that dries in it, and then it splays out all sideways and crooked. And then it's essentially what I would kind of consider either a dry brush or a brush that I'm going to use for basing that I'm going to put my PVA glue through. So really the big thing is look around. There's a lot of companies that make them. There's one specific towards miniatures, but you don't have to hold yourself into those. For example, I tend to use some of the cheaper brushes, and knowing that they don't last very long and I replace them often. But that works for me. It may not work for you. But just, try a bunch of different things and figure out what you're comfortable with and what works for you, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah. And so along with that, Andy stressed this point, but I want to make it very, very clear is, the tools are only tools. They're only as good as the person using them. And that's everything we talk about today. You could be, freaking, have a $600 brush, which I don't know if that exists. Probably does. I don't know. And that doesn't mean you're awesome painter now. It's not really so much that. Tools and they're basically, if you apply it in any other trade or craft or hobby or whatever, it's basically how long the tool lasts, and how well it performs. Are really the thing with tools. It doesn't make you necessarily a better artist or better painter and stuff like that, but it does make you um, maybe require less effort, or the flow's better, or whatever else. But two other things I wanted to mention with brushes. He talked about it. I use the Masters brush cleaner and preservative. Amazing stuff. I'll post a link if you want to check it out on Amazon. And then also another thing to note is based on what kind of paint you're using, make sure you get the brush to go along with that paint. So like if you're using acrylic, it's not as big of an issue, but say you bust out the Vallejo liquid golds, which are alcohol based, they will destroy hair brushes. So if they're made of hair, you'll need some kind of synthetic.
Yeah, and the other thing there's to be mindful, because some of those alcohol-based stuff, if you've got a brush you used acrylic with, and if you do one of the things like I've done, just not thinking, and you tape it and you dip it in some of the alcohol-based paints, you'll see your brush just kind of split and go all kinds of weird things. And that's basically when you put that one in the trash and call it done. But the other thing too is just to remember what brush is for the right job. So for example, your detail brush, you use it for details. And I can never stress too how critical for me, if you paint like me, how critical a good dry brush is. Um, they're ones made specifically for dry brushes. If you kind of know what you're looking for, you can make a dry brush. But you'll use one more often than you think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So right now I'm actually running the Army Painter, the Army Painter line of brushes. And to be honest, I don't think they're like superly amazing. Like now they're better than what I was using before, as far as they come cleaner, better. But also using that airbrush cleaner and condenser, and actually cleaning my brushes correctly. But one of the things I wanted to point out with their dry brush, their dry brushes are awesome. They're angled, and all of their brushes are triangular, so they fit. About dropped it on the floor, but they fit in your hand really nice. They're comfortable, and they're not going to break the break the bank. And so I really have been enjoying them. And then a lot of people also look at the Series 7 brushes. I hear those are really nice. I haven't actually tried one yet. I don't know that I can come to spending that kind of money on a brush yet. So when my brushes are working perfectly fine. So anyway.
Yeah. And then kind of on to the next thing is we're going to talk about primers. Different types of primers. There's, of course, your aerosol sprays, which what you could, kind of consider anything in a can essentially here. And then there's, specialty lines of airbrush primers, and then kind of brush on primers. Each of them kind of have their advantage and disadvantage in certain ways. Obviously, if you don't have an airbrush primers probably aren't for you. Aerosols, you can kind of run the gamut of anything out of a can. Some things work better than others, but your typical Rust-Oleum, Krylon. But the ones I prefer more than anything are the Army Painter tinted primers. Pay a little bit more for them than your typical can of an aerosol spray, but they're really good. And when you go to put down paint, if you have a really crappy primer layer, blisters, craters, any of those defects, it's going to show, and you may spend a lot of time sanding or trying to fix a model. So finding the right primer for the job you're going to do is pretty critical. But mostly for me here lately, I use the airbrush primer. So I'm using the surface primer from Vallejo. I've got a big bottle of it, and it's great because I put it right through the airbrush. Odor's pretty low. The only downside is they kind of tell you to wait a day for it to kind of set and cure before you paint over top of it. But I mean, most of these other ones are probably the same way. There's a few brush-on primers I've tried. I've never had any good luck with them. Main problem I always seem to run to is they seem to dry too quickly. They streak when they do that, or they go on too thick. And kind of thinning them down is, I don't really want to, and honestly, and maybe you're fine with it, but I'm not. But I don't want to sit and, put 2 or 3 layers of a primer on a model before I can paint it. So
Yeah, yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat. Um, I use some Rust-Oleum for priming, like especially terrain and stuff like that. It's good stuff. The thing is it's like multi-purpose, so it's really not designed for miniatures. I tend to lean towards Army Painter just because, the commission background that I come from, it's all about speed. And Army Painter primers, I could start with a primer and a base coat. So like they're Andy said they're tinted, so they basically have a color to them. So you can base coat them. They even have metals, so like metallic primers, and really, there's all kinds of debates on which aerosol primer is the best and which brand and all kinds of stuff like that. And honestly, I haven't picked up a can of primer and been like, man, this is total trash. Like it's complete crap. Like I could see no use for that. It really boils down to, that you use it correctly, that you shake the mess out of the bottle. And I'm not talking, sit here for 5 seconds and you shake the bottle. Oh, it's, I'm talking like 5, 10, 15 minutes, especially if it's been sitting for a long time. And then something else, another trick I like to do is I'll actually stick it, especially in the winter. I'll stick it on top of the heater, let the heat warm up the paint. Now, don't leave it there too long. Maybe that's a bad recommendation. If your house burns down, full disclosure, you shouldn't have done it. I probably wouldn't. But anyway, so I put mine on. I have like a little oil heater. It's like a radiator heater, and I just set it there long enough for it to get a little bit warm, and then shake it up a little bit more, especially if the paint's been sitting for a while, especially the metallics. I really like the Army Painter stuff. It's just nice thin coats, good colors, and it's not like super expensive. It's probably mid to high as far as pricing on all kinds of brands out there and stuff like that.
yeah.
But then again, a lot of people swear by the Vallejo stuff too. So, and I've had good luck with it too. And actually, I've had luck too using the Vallejo surface primers to brush on, like especially the white. So like if I'm like doing cloth over like something that was metallic or black or some dark color, I'll actually or like I've seen people use them with Necron. They'll actually take primer and brush the cracks or brush whatever, and use the primer and then start from there. So they basically have a reprimed surface, so they get better color and paint performance. So, but talking about primers, naturally we're going to go into paints. This is a big, huge topic. We could have an episode alone. And I know this one's going pretty long, but I think what we're covering today is really important. It's really the basic, the core of hobbying. But talking about paints, there's all kinds of brands out there. There's all kinds of types, and it's going back to, and we probably said this several times now, but it's a tool, and it's not necessarily that any tool is better than another. One might be better in one area than another, and whatever else. So it's that you choose the right tool for the job. So I get asked the question, what kind of paints do you use? Well, I use whatever, and I have several ones. I as we've mentioned before, I lean toward Vallejo stuff, but I have P3 paints. I have liquid paints. I have AK Interactive stuff. I have different paints, but some I have a few GW stuff. But I really tend to find the right paint that works for me, and I'm familiar with that paint, so I use it, and I've gotten skilled at using that tool essentially.
Yeah, so really, like kind of Adam said, with paints here, the sky is the limit. Just find something that you're comfortable with. I'm in the same boat as Adam here lately, mostly Vallejo paints. The other ones I have are good paints. It's honestly, for me, Vallejo kind of takes the edge in price, and I really like the dropper style paints. They're easier to use. I think there's less waste, especially airbrushing or even mixing on a pallet or anything like that. It's easier to just, turn the bottle and drop 2 or 3 drops. Makes it really easy when it comes to measuring. With some of the paints, really like the pot style from GW, you've got to have, well, here's one brush full of this color and maybe 1 or 2 brushfuls of this color, but was that really a medium brush full or a large brush full? Or you can always bust out the pipette, but then you're wasting a lot of paint inside of a